Well. What did we witness last night? Great to have your company on NBL Now. It's Friday's edition, a little later than normal because, to be honest, we needed to have a deep breath. We needed to go back and watch some replays. We needed to try and make sense of everything that happened in Illawarra last night, plus get some clarification on a few key things as well. I'm Jack Heverin. Pete Hooley, great to see you.
In the hot seat, Hev. Looking forward to this. I mean, again, I know we've got a lot to talk about, but I think the problem as someone who loves the game of hoops is that all these other things take away from what an incredible basketball game we saw last night as well. I would love to see a 5-game series when it all mattered most between the Illawarra Hawks and Melbourne United. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that shouldn't be lost. That game was brilliant. I had the great fortune of calling that semi-final series last year, and to me, that could have been game 4 of that semi-final series. You could have just added that on the back of what we saw last season.
Also, and again, it was announced yesterday, Dave O'Hickey's re-signing or the extension. Whatever that number was, probably should have got another 0 added to it after last night's game. He just keeps going from strength to strength. Love what he's doing, and he loves playing against Melbourne United too, so you've got to add a little something to that, but he was terrific.
I think Matt Russell said in the call that he shouldn't have signed the contract yet. He should have waited and just put some extra value on it.
Well, normally we see guys, once they sign deals, they say, you know what, I've got 2 years until I really need a contract year to start performing. He went the other way. He really stepped up once again, but he's been a terrific find for the Hawks.
Just worth noting, the first thing I did this morning was get back on the NBL app, look at the fixture to see when Melbourne and Illawarra play next. It's a Friday night in Melbourne in December, which very rarely happens that Melbourne hosts a Friday night game. Just imagine, Pete, off the back of everything that happened that we're about to get into, just imagine what that atmosphere is going to be like.
It is going to be electric. It is going to be fun. Again, I love the Wynn Entertainment Centre. The crowd's getting involved now because the Hawks are so exciting to watch. Melbourne United, you know, they've had sellouts already to start the season. So to come back to John Cain Arena and kind of have a little rematch within the regular season, it all hopefully sets up. It would be the biggest travesty in NBL if we don't get a final series again between these two. What we saw last year, what we've already seen, we need some sort of semi-final or championship series between them.
Okay, now I mentioned off the top that we've taken a little bit longer than normal to get together to record this show because some clarification on things was important. And this is not just towing the company line. This is us wanting to know what went on and getting some explanation so that we can try and help you, the NBL Now family, understand what went on last night as well. Why don't we start with the clock issue? Because that sort of plays a role in everything that happens straight after that. There was an issue with the clock not restarting at the correct time. The explanation that we've received from the operations department today is that there was an equipment failure. The time taken to initially calm to initially calm the situation and then ensure that the referees had the correct interpretation of the rules in the circumstance and ensure that the match would restart appropriately.
I mean, it's tough. Equipment failure you can't prepare for, right? Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether you're a referee, every single rule, every single possibility when you get to a game that's going to have that magnitude with so many things leading up to that moment, the one thing you can never prepare for is the equipment deciding to lay an egg in the big moment. So again, understanding that in the moment is obviously very hard to do because emotions are heightened and trying to figure out what's next. So I like that the first thing was, okay, let's try and just calm the situation down and try and understand exactly what went on. And then you feel for everybody involved there because, again, whether you've done it, whether you're a kid who's been playing and your parents have been on the score sheet or whatever, there's a lot of pressure. And if you get on there and the pen doesn't work as a score sheet and you're trying to write down your kid's score, you're going to feel anxious about that, let alone when the equipment goes out. So it's not an ideal situation, and trying to make the best of that is always interesting.
Okay, so that's that. And that's a pretty easy one to deal with. It's not ideal. The situation sucks, but I'm sure that in a perfect world, we would never have equipment failure. But that sort of snowballed a few other things off the back of it. The next was the Will Hickey foul. Now, you could sort of just walk past this one and say that it didn't matter that much, but I guess in the context of everything, Pete, it probably does matter. And the explanation from the NBL is, yes, this was a foul on Hickey, but given that no time ran off the clock, the foul by Hickey is not valid and as such ignored for the purpose of the restart.
Yeah, I agree with you. We still need to talk about it, right? Because it all seemed to be the beginning of a snowball effect that what we continue to talk about, that what transpired after the game. And everyone's going to have different opinions on whether the foul was there or not. I personally wouldn't have called it in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't think the contact was enough to warrant a foul. Yes, there's clearly some sort of contact from Hickey on Golding, But I don't think in the moment of what the game was on the line, exactly what was going to transpire after that, I don't think it was enough to call a foul. And again, we've seen a lot of other contact go away. We sit here as commentators and experts preaching to let some contact go. We want to see people really go at it and really step up on the physicality measure. I don't think there was enough there to call a foul, but you can understand there's people saying there was contact and we should go down that road. I'm not on that side, but again, that's what the call was at the time.
So they're two that needed clarification. We'll get to the tech in a moment. Did Chris Goulding flop?
Normally we sit here and everyone's going to say he flopped, but the more that I slowed it down and continue to look at it, and everyone talks about a hyperextension of the knee, I see his left ankle go over ever so slightly out. And then that came so far after the contact. And as much as we've seen him exaggerate so many things in the past, I don't think he did in this moment. And that's my honest opinion. You can call me biased as an old teammate of his. We've seen last week, I thought he exaggerated that. This one, I think clearly there was something in his ankle or leg. And I think afterwards, straight away, when he got up and he mentioned that, and even there was an incident in the first quarter or second quarter with Traco and Tyler Harvey where he stopped and then went to trying to pick them all up. I don't think it was in this moment. I think it was probably a little bit more of an alarming scare. And I think at that time, and you remove yourself from it a few days later and maybe you talk to him, I don't even think he'd say it was a foul, to be perfectly honest. I think he'd say the contact there had nothing to do with how his ankle or knee slipped at the time. But again, all this stuff technically doesn't matter. But as you said, I think we have to talk about it.
Yeah, so do you think because of, it was topical. You guys spoke about it on Tuesday night. Leonard Copeland really made an emphasis on it on the show. And then there is no doubt that there's some villain elements to Chris, and there are some fans who just don't like him. There's no point sugarcoating this. There are some fans who just don't like him and the way that he, at times in their eyes, conducts himself. So do you think there's an element of this as well, that given what's gone on in the past, that some people are seeing this a little worse than perhaps it was?
No doubt. And I think Liam said it on overtime as well, when he was talking more in terms of when there's an actual foul in the play, whether he's getting held off the ball or he gets contact in the air, that he said the boy who cried wolf, where he doesn't actually get those calls because of everything that's transpired in the past. So I think, but in terms of just the vision and the social media aspect of it, and all the fans who don't like him when he comes into their building, they're obviously going to look at this straight away and run to it. I would separate this from the one last week. I think they're two completely different ones. When you slow it down, if you've been in the moment where a little ankle goes over, whether it's a knee, whether it's a warrior, whatever it is, I don't think there was as much embellishment in this one as there was in others in the past.
Yeah, I think that there was a slight amount of embellishment, and maybe that just comes with the history as well. I think the reaction and suggestions that he cheated and all that sort of stuff, I think that's just emotional, preconceived ideas, to be honest. My thing with that, Pete, is that I go back to the call, if that's the case. And particularly when you watch the front-on angle, where Hickey almost just drives past, and in my opinion, and it's only an opinion, barely gets him, I think the call is wrong here.
And again, that's the start of it all, right? The call that didn't matter in the end, but that call then led to everything else that transpired after that. And I'm with you. I don't think it was the right call in the moment. Again, technically it wasn't, but I think there was no foul on that play.
So then we get to the tech foul. Justin Tatum and his press conference after the game was a motion charge, but in that moment, and it happened right in front of him, this incident, so no one had a better look at this than Justin Tatum, and he certainly thought, I should say, that there wasn't a foul. He argued the point, continued on, and then was issued with a tech. Now, to the absolute letter of the law, and there will be some people who will say that regardless of the situation of the game, that if there is language used or the referencing of the officials is inappropriate, that there should be a tech. But are you one that prescribes to maybe showing a little bit of game sense and understanding the moment and the occasion and the controversy and perhaps just letting that one slide?
100%. That's the first thing I was thinking when I was watching this, is you've got a heated battle between two championship contenders going at it. You've got to understand the emotions are heightened from every single person in that game. Whether the call that happened with the equipment failure, all of that led to it. So just understanding, even without that, the fact that you've got the game on the line, everything that was built up beforehand from last year, the leash should be a little longer to have an understanding of the moment and why people would have heightened emotions in it. If there's a personal attack from a player or a coach directed at a referee, that's different. We're talking about a completely different thing there. But swearing about a call, I think you can understand, okay, in the moment, yes, I understand why you're upset, but okay, you've said it now. Can we try and just calm down from that and let's have a talk there? I don't want to get too wrapped up in this, because if we're doing that, Jack, then if we've seen coaches carry on a lot worse than that this year, in the past decade, from the opening tip. And again, I think this was a point of emphasis from referees leading into this year, was coaches' behaviour. We're trying to minimise that because we have seen it get out of control at times. But if this is what the letter of the law is being held, no matter what the game standard is, then the very next coach who decides to curse at the first 20 seconds of a game about a bad call gets a technical foul. That's where I'm at with it.
I'd say that the brief explanation that we've received is the actions and language from the coach were inappropriate and worthy of a technical foul in circumstances. That's fine. If that is the explanation, we'll all be watching tonight, and we'll all be watching across the weekend. And I agree with you 100% there. We don't need to name names. This is not what it's about. But there are some serial offenders in this league who get away with a whole lot, week in, week out, far worse than what we saw last night.
And it's been in every professional sport, to be honest. But just look back in the NBL, not just this year, not just in the past decade. You've got coaches who really like to step on the line and get close to the line in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. And I don't want us to have to go down that path. I don't want to see an immediate technical foul, because you understand that coaches, we've seen it recently, coaches are coaching for their livelihood as well. So coaches are coaching to try and win games so they can keep their job and be the best that they could be in what they're doing, especially in that moment, all things considered. And again, take out everything else, especially in a close game between, you call it a rivalry or you call it a rematch or a revenge game. I'd like to think we could just be a little more understanding of that situation, and that as long as it doesn't cross the line, as I said, if there's a personal attack in there, or there's some really, and we've seen things in the past that are so obviously crossing the line, then I think you do it. But just based on the swearing and saying that's a terrible call, which a lot of people agree with, and regardless of whether that's right or wrong, if your frustration's there, I'm letting that go.
Yeah, and I don't want it to get lost in all of this too. We're just trying to unpack this in the moment. I don't want it to get lost about respect for officials, because that Dave Stevenson, the NBL CEO, spoke about this last year. And I agree with it. Like, it is very, very hard to get officials at any level, and there should be a level of respect. But I think the way you summarize that is perfect, that in that particular moment, perhaps that could have been handled, or we could have stepped all the way through the process without having to issue a tech foul.
And again, we've seen coaches get warnings all the time, right? And again, if there was a warning prior to it, and you go, okay, we've already given you a warning.
Yeah.
I still want to see the sense of understanding of the situation, though. I still want to say, look, I can understand what the current point of the game is and why you're upset. I'm telling you now, please don't use that language again. And then if you don't listen to that, then okay, I think you can go ahead and technical foul. But just understanding that everyone's emotions are high. And let's be honest, referees' emotions are probably at the highest during those kind of moments, because you do not want to get involved with a game and have things that dictate a game based on a whistle. You want to let the players do it. So I think just that as a collective, we can be better for.
And for Mike Wells, Adam Ford, Brian Gorshin and John Rillie, you're the next four up tonight in this double header, which we'll get to. I would just suggest that it would be wise to not use any sort of fruity language at any stage in the game, because if we are going to be consistent with this, Pete, which is probably my point on the tech more than anything else, if we're going to be consistent, then we're going to see more techs across the round and every round if we are being consistent.
I mean, we see it a lot all the time. Again, when coaches are unhappy, that kind of language and saying and describing a call in a certain way is normally when a coach kind of turns around and it's the frustrations of themselves, just speaking out loud and getting that off their chest. Again, if you look down the barrel of the eye of somebody and you're really coming at them personally, we're talking about a completely different thing, but that's not what happened here. I think both players, coaches, referees, we can all try and understand the sense of the situation, and we can be better for that going forward.
The other one, that's a small one, but again, it's all the little things are the big things in this game. The NBL have gone back and clarified Dean Vickerman did not have any timeouts left. He certainly, in Melbourne's bench, certainly thought that they did, so perhaps someone lost count. There was an argument, or they were suggesting that at one point they called for a sub rather than a timeout. They still took that timeout. So clarification there that there was, in fact, no timeouts left.
Well, again, you look at the rule, though, in Australia, right? We're not in the NBA. So the NBA, I think, I can't even remember college was that long ago, in terms of calling a timeout on the floor in live play. Craig Sword tried to do it. We've seen imports come in and try to do it. You can't do that here. Yep. So that rule doesn't become relevant to it, which, again, it would save a lot of coaches. Dean Vickerman and Melbourne United wouldn't be the first ones who think they've got an extra timeout when you try and call one. But that rule doesn't apply to us. So we have to pretty much just throw that out the window.
So to try and wrap this whole thing up, we could have gone for another 15 minutes on it, to be honest. Do you think that Illawarra, as a fan base and as a team and as an organisation, do you think they've got a right to be annoyed with what went on last night?
Absolutely. How could you not be? You're sitting here just watching an unbelievable basketball game and it boils down to that. Of course you're going to be frustrated. And of course you should be allowed to voice your frustration and be unhappy until you get the chance to play this team again. Just based on everything we've spoke about, everything was in the moment. And again, the frustration, even I'm sitting here frustrated about it because we have to talk about all of this rather than talking about the incredible basketball game that we saw. So I completely understand where the frustrations come from. I understand where Justin Tatum's frustrations came from in the moment. That's all part of the emotions of professional sports.
Even the things that we're talking about here, and a lot of it was around Chris Golding and whether he flopped or not. What got lost in all of this is that he absolutely ripped Illawarra's heart out again.
Well, that's what he does again. You talk about other fan bases not liking him. I go back to 2018. The Adelaide 36ers fan base did not like him whatsoever. And the more you could seem to boo a guy, the more he seems to rise to occasion. Unbelievable credit to him. You can dislike the opposition player as much as you want. But as someone who, when I played at any level, didn't like hearing any of that, didn't like knowing about any of that and having to deal with it on such a smaller scale, but I couldn't handle it. To be able to not just deal with it, but to rise to the occasion and put games to bed time and time again. It's not the first time he's done it. He is an absolute killer in that aspect. You have to take your hat off to him and commend him because not everybody is built like that. And in the end, he's a gamer.
Yeah, and as we said, Chris Golding is a villain. I think there's a part of him that quite likes that villain role, particularly when he goes on the road. It sort of fires him up a little bit. There are some people who are going to listen to this, and particularly the way we spoke about the incident and whether it was a flop or not. You will hear what you want to hear, and I can't help you with that. And Pete, you can't help them with that either. You will hear what you want to hear. Chris Golding could tell you that the sky was blue, and you'd say that it was grey. So there's not much that we can do for you on that one, other than give our views on it. But yeah, I mean, that when they get back together in Melbourne in early December, if you haven't got tickets, I would suggest you jump on really quickly because that's going to sell out. Off what we saw last night, there's not going to be many tickets left, I would say.
That, and I'll say it again, if we do not get some sort of semi-final or championship series against these two teams, it's going to be one of the biggest what-ifs in NBL history. We simply need to have 3 or 5 games. And maybe this is the one time where if they met in a championship series, screw it, let's put an extra 2 games on for fun. We get to 7.
Right. We've got a little bit else to get through. This is going to be an extended edition of NBL Now, so Pete's going to charge us a bit extra for this one. The first game didn't have anywhere near as much drama between New Zealand and Southeast Melbourne in Christchurch. It had no drama because New Zealand showed 0 fight in the second half and Southeast Melbourne absolutely flogged them. 18-16 in the third quarter, 23-11 in the fourth quarter. The Phoenix go 2-0 under Sam Mackinnon, winners 88-62.
Again, sitting here, I'm not surprised. I picked the Phoenix to win this game. I thought that, again, where they're coming from, what they're playing for, the emotional aspect behind all of them as they lead into getting their new coach, Josh King. I thought they were kind of come in hot, and they were. And yes, you take out key pieces of New Zealand's bench, but I also look at the small portion we saw of New Zealand leading up to this game. And I know there was the NBA break in between, but they played Brisbane twice, they played a Perthless Bryce Cotton, and they played the Phoenix once before this game when Phoenix were really struggling. They haven't played anybody yet. And I think now we're starting to see everything kind of catch up for them. They've still got some tremendous talent, an MVP caliber player in Parker Jackson Cartwright. But now we're really going to see what New Zealand's made out of with their backs against the wall a little bit. But take nothing away from the Phoenix because they were in the headlines for 5 straight rounds. It was getting louder. They had to make a big move. And now the players are just coming together and they're getting wins.
This is not new information, but Matt Hurt's a star. He was the best player on that court last night alongside PJC. He was playing a different game to everyone else.
He looks... I spoke about it a little bit in the awards watch about he's an all-NBL... If he keeps this up, he's an all-NBL lock, right? It's just the way that he's playing. But For him to enter an MVP conversation, they had to start getting wins. Now, how many wins does the team need for him to fully enter the conversation? I'm not sure. All they can focus on is winning games, but they've won 2 in a row, again, on the back of him. He is an absolute bucket, and what an unbelievable signing he's been. If they keep ticking off wins, if they can sneak in to the 6 and he keeps this up, we're going to have to start looking at him as an MVP candidate.
And the other thing, I mean, I said this on Moments That Matter on Monday. I think Sam Mackinnon is the next coach in this league. Don't even bother looking overseas unless you can somehow manage to get Greg Popovich out of San Antonio. Just look at what's available right now. Sam Mackinnon is coaching the lights out. They're 2-0. We saw 15 minutes from Ben Ayre last night. He was plus 21 in his time on the court. I mean, this guy deserves minutes in this league, and he showed that last night.
And again, I give a lot of that credit to Sam Mackinnon. The way he handled himself in the press conference last week after the throwdown, it said that he knows how to empower Nathan Sobey, who was struggling the right way, and then call him out for his BS. I think everybody is kind of playing for him for the same reason as you said. And Jason Kadee chimed in on Twitter throughout the week saying, absolutely, Sam Mackinnon should be the next head coach in this league. And I hope that opportunity does present itself for him, because what he's done in this short amount of time to get a team that was struggling, had their backs against the wall, to buy into a certain game style and the emotions behind everything of a coach leaving a quarter way through the season, that says a lot about who you are as a coach, but also who you are as a person. So I hope that opportunity does come. I want to lose Sam Mackinnon from Australian basketball.
Phoenix and Illawarra Saturday. Gee, that game becomes very interesting for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Two different sets of emotions going in.
I've just finished off all my game notes for that. I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. Tonight, Adelaide and Cairns. I think the big story here, Pete, is Isaac Humphries, who we've learned this morning is a game time decision. You would think, given that Cairns have lost 3 in a row and they've got a lot of support in the big man department, you would think they won't risk him if there's any issues.
Yeah, put him on ice. No pun intended. But
I see what you did there.
I think you have to, right? If it's calf tightness, I mean, he's still young. He's got plenty left in the tank. But if it's calf tightness there's no Tanner Groves. He didn't travel for Cairns. You can get some more minutes in Jarrell Martin. You can play a little bit smaller if you have to. Put Montrezl Harrell down low. Let him do what he does best. Ride things through DJ, Kendrick Davis. Play Lat Main at the 4 a little bit more. I wouldn't be risking it knowing how important he is to this team's success. I think Adelaide are going to come in feeling really good about themselves. It's another chance for them to show that they're a championship contender. And we just all want to see some more Adelaide 36ers. Everyone's just loving this Adelaide 36ers run, hoping it doesn't stop.
Yeah, I love this. Adelaide, Friday night at the Entertainment Centre, prime time. I'd be shocked if it's not a sellout or close to. I've got concerns for Cairns here, Pete, big time. No Tanner Groves. Still no Taron Armstrong. They look a little bit small, to be honest, and I just worry that Montrez is just going to eat them tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's my worry too, especially with no Tanner Grove, Sam Wardenberg, Kyron Galloway, AK Gakian have to try and step up. But if they can somehow get Trez in foul trouble, it might look a little different. The one thing that I think Cairns have on their side is Adelaide, as good as they've been, aren't the strongest defensive team either. Besides Sunday Detch, who's going to get the go challenge on Rob Edwards, outside of that, it should get a little bit more freedom for Cairns players to operate. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I do think Cairns are going to actually be able to put points on the board. It's whether they can do it enough over 40 minutes to try and slow down the big men of the 36ers.
Perth and Sydney, straight after that at RAC Arena. It is now a Bryce Cottonless Perth. They've had 6 days to get their head around this, to draw up some new plays, to find some new ways to score. I thought Felix's point was a really good one on overtime on Tuesday, that now we might actually see what John Rillie's made of as a coach, because so much, in fact, everything runs through Bryce. Now he and his coaching group have got to find other ways to make this happen. It should be fun, right? You should be waking up excited for that challenge if you're JR, because, again, you get to basically say that equal opportunity offense, and you've got young, hungry guys like Ben Henschel and Elijah Pepper who are just desperate for this extra opportunity. It comes in the way that you don't want. You never want players to miss, especially a 4-time MVP. But now you have no choice but to give them the bird and give them the rock and say, hey, we need you to produce. Hopefully they run a little bit more through Keanu Pinder. They need him to have a big game as well. But this is going to be a fascinating watch, because I tell you why. I am not sure what's going to go through Bull Quall's head as he gets ready to step into this game. All he sets his mind for are some of the best battles in the entire league. We saw it last week, Milton Doyle. We've seen it with Chris Golden. We've seen all these battles against Bryce Cotton and Bull Quall. Who does he even go to? Does he even need to play? He's probably been him and Wani Swaka-Bullock are the defensive player of the year candidates with Shea Ili right now, in my mind. But
He can probably take the night off.
No, he can just play some offense for once because he can still score. We forget that with ball qual. He can actually put the ball in the bottom of the net. He's just been focusing defensively.
I tell you what I'd love. If as that game is about to tip off and they're getting ready, they're shaking their hands coming out, if he just went and sat next to Bryce on the Perth bench and just sat there and just said, I'm here no matter whether you're playing or not, I'd love that.
I can't work out Sydney at the moment. But again, there might be some similarities to what we just said with Perth. No Jalen Adams. So you would think that Tyler Robertson will start again, and you would think that Sean Bruce will play more significant minutes, and it might maybe unlock something for Isaiah Liafa because he hasn't looked like it so far this season. But I wouldn't exactly say they're airborne right now, the Sydney Kings.
No, they've got a lot to figure out. And again, I don't think they're worried because as long as it's all kind of sorted by mid-January, that's all that matters. You're playing your best basketball, then you've got your rotation sorted. Weirdly enough, Jalen Adams being out, I think creates more problems in the long run, though, because it does give more confidence and more reps to Tyler Robertson, who's been very good, and for Isaiah Liafa to find his feet. Now, if Jalen Adams misses another game or two here or there, and these two other guys step up and fill the void, then Brian Gordon's got another issue on his hands. When everybody becomes full health, no one doesn't deserve minutes. Kawhi Noy went from not playing for a little bit, I know he was sick, but then in the rotation, out of it again, to basically winning them the game last week against Tasmania. So you need to find minutes for him. Jalen Galloway, we haven't seen a whole lot of. He'll start to find his groove soon. Cam Oliver's slipped down a little bit. I'm not sure where that all piles in, but I don't think they're worried too much. As long as that's sorted by mid-Jan, they'll be fine.
Coverage starts from 7 p.m. Check your local guides because with all the different time differences now, I forget who's what these days. Right. But just check your local guides. The best way to do it. We've gone a lot longer than what we normally would on NBL Now. We're normally short, sharp, punchy, and everything you need to know. But there was a lot to talk about. And Peter, I still wonder, I mean, it's after lunch, Melbourne time that we're recording this. So I still think there might be a bit to come out of this in the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I think there will be too. And again, I'm sitting here frustrated that there will be because it takes away everything from what an incredible game it was. Just like everybody's entitled. This was social media. We talk about the tweet from the Phoenix owner in the throwdown last week, but that dominated headlines all week rather than the massive win from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Regardless, everyone's allowed to have their opinion, whether it's right or wrong. I think everybody's entitled to it, and I enjoy seeing everybody's different opinion. I just hate when it overshadows great basketball. We saw it in the throwdown, and we didn't really talk about it enough because of everything else. And again, we saw it last night. So that's disappointing. That's frustrating. But again, it just sets up for the next time these two teams go at it.
And it makes it interesting for tomorrow against the Phoenix. News just in as we finish up too. Trey Kell won't play tomorrow. He's out until at least October 31 with a back injury. So Kobe McDowell-White, good luck if he gets an opportunity, comes into the roster at least for tomorrow's game. So some injury news for the Hawks as we finish up as well. No more replays, Pete. Go and have a lie down. I've pressed stop, rewind, play so many times today that I just need a bit of a break. So well done trying to work this all out.
Trying, man. I'm just looking forward to cracking into the games tonight.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for being with us on NBL Now. A little later than normal, so I appreciate your patience and enjoy the weekend's hoops.